romantic feelings. Let's call them romantic, and we'll leave it at that. I don't think Bowser's hot. Obviously, I wouldn't think that. That would be ridiculous of me, and that would lead me to ridicule, and I would never want to be ridiculed. So, therefore, it's not. Okay, this is a down the rabbit hole. I've actually heard of this series before. No, yeah, you can send videos. I try to do them in chronological order, so it won't be for maybe a couple of minutes while we get there. Also, I just realized that my webcam is off frame, and that's going to bother me. So let me move that just a little bit. Like I said, I'm finicky. I wasn't lying. I wasn't lying when I said it. This is how I am. This is who I am. If you're in the stream, you got to accept this. You got to accept that this is who I am as a person. There we go. That's better. I like that better. Okay. This is called the Final Fantasy House, which
there are few as infamous as the
I love Final Fantasy
House. Though the details are unclear to most who remember it, its reputation is still
It's what the other guy said, basically some chick internet mind control mind-controlled losers from the internet into coming to live in her squalid apartment and made everyone basically roleplay as Final Fantasy characters 24/7. She moved into a house with some other people, and they gradually discovered she was a horrible weirdo that had a Final Fantasy VII based church. I'm so in.
Sometimes invoked on forums in reference to terrible housemates or the eccentric potential from online communities, especially fandoms. What's more, it was one of the main channels through which internet users were introduced to the otherkin phenomenon.
Okay, so I think I know a little bit about this story, not from experience. Yeah, I have heard, or I must have heard about it at some point, because I don't remember any of the specifics, but I remember the specifically the otherkin shit going on the internet. So if you don't know what otherkin is, it's basically where people believe themselves to be like a different, like, mythical creature of some kind. Like alien otherkin is like a really, really popular one.
But what was the Final Fantasy House?
The Plan Kinney? What? Plant Kinney? Yeah, plants. Some people
18th,
like would say that they're plants.
A LiveJournal user under the handle of GenkiCrack made a long, scattered post detailing an experience
I don't like that name.
Specific fans of Final Fantasy VII, a popular and influential story-driven.
Can we bring back, by the way, fucking things that look like this? I used to love the cover art for that.
From Japan. He introduced it by writing, "These people are dangerous. This is not a joke. This is my experience with them."
Goddamn.
He began by explaining his place within the fandom. Quote, "Most people watching the journal now probably don't know this, but back in the day, I ran a pretty popular website devoted to the characters Cloud and the very minor character, Zack, from Final Fantasy VII.
Zack is not a minor character. Zack is incredibly important to the franchise. People just don't give him enough credit.
It was really the only comprehensive one out there about the two, which was why it got such
Zack
notice.
erasure.
I was used to receiving fan mail or other people's fan art, which I'd put up on the website." Unquote. At the time of his alleged experience, he explained that he was a college freshman and a heavy drinker. In 2002,
it's okay, Tarmac. You have plenty of time to grow and learn.
Hojo, referencing the mad scientist villain from the game, and the two began conversing with each other occasionally over AOL Instant Messenger.
Any story that has AOL in it, by the way, goes sideways. AOL was a fucking nightmare.
To her namesake, and following the same pattern, she began calling the writer Zack after his site. At the time, he thought
that's
nothing of
weird.
this. Sometime after, he was introduced to Hojo's wife, who went by Genova, or Jen, after an ancient evil and alien creature from the game. The writer describes their first encounter online. Quote, "Then came a good old bombshell. I was asked if I had any memories of past lives. I do believe in past lives. I think it's a pretty valid cycle given how many cultures believe in it. So I told her no, I didn't, but I did believe in it. I should never, ever have said that. It was like inviting the vampire into my house. Jen's attack was swift and sure. She began in a flurry explaining things to me, how there are alternate universes. Do you grant me that? Sure, there could be. And in those universes, maybe, just maybe, video games actually happened.
Oh,
I thought
God.
it would be plausible, because I like
This sounds a lot like how the Chris Chan, like, situation started.
imagining anything's possible. Through all of this and all this flurry, she tells me that she thinks in a past life I was Zack from Final Fantasy VII. Think about it, she
Oh,
said. You're
weird.
both country grown. You both have that instinct of dragging off friends who could be left behind. You'd take a bullet for someone, right? You say you don't believe in magic or anything.
You would take a bullet for someone, right?
5 or 6 lines, you have a similar speech pattern. You even live in a basement like he was locked in one, and you hate it. Addle your brain with freshman idiocy and vodka,
Come
and this will
on.
suddenly make sense. Sure, maybe I'm not him now, I said, but it was possible. Unquote. The writer agreed to meet them in the town of State College, Pennsylvania that winter to stay at their apartment, a week before
that's
Christmas.
wild.
He was met at the bus stop by Hojo, wearing a lab coat, who escorted him back to where they were living. Quote, when we arrived at the apartment, Jen, who insisted I call her Genova and would often refer to herself as Jenny Nova, came storming up to Hojo and I, screaming in Hojo's face. I have no idea what it was about. She was wearing a purple skirt pulled up around her breasts. It looked like she had just got out of bed, and I was, to say the very least, intimidated.
Just say
About 3
torso.
seconds later, she whirled around in a quick change. Suddenly, the nicest person ever, whatever she was mad about, was out the window. About this time, I started to realize, though, Jen wasn't role-playing when she talked about her children and other selves. Jen is what the internet calls a soul bonder, or in other words, batshit loony. She believes she has a lot of people living in her head talking, and when she wants to take on a personality that best fits a situation for her personal gain, she acts one out. I.e., if she wanted
To be fair, in the infinity of the universe, not in an extreme way, but like it's possible that you were a warrior or something. I mean, I think that there's credence to like out there stories like that. Like that doesn't, how do I say this? I don't think that there is an impossibility that there could be other universes with stuff like that. But at the same time, I think it's important to kind of curb your expectation of what infinity in the universe means. There are set, like, how do I say this? There are set starts and ends to things in the universe, right? And so, although there is an infinity of, you know, chances for things to exist, there's also an infinity of chances that they do not exist. Therefore, like, it's like Schrodinger's cat, right? Like, there's an infinite chance that things could be happening all over the place, and there is an infinite chance that things could not be happening. Therefore, like, I think it just comes down to what you subscribe to, which should be my channel on YouTube, youtube.com/Calicore. Anyway, for me personally, I think that saying that anything exists is a little presumptuous, but I understand why people feel that way, and I think that there's a lot of credence to that conversation.
to get sympathy, she would raise the pitch of her voice and pretend to be an innocent child.
And also, like, I want to point out, like, these... Oh, and on Twitch, that's true, when we're watching something like this that has to do with, like, mental illness and stuff, like... I want it to also be made aware that, like, I understand that, like, there is like legitimate mental illness going on here, but obviously, just to set my bases, having a mental illness does not excuse what you use that mental illness to hurt other people. So even if I'm critical of these people, understand that it's not about their mental illness, it's about what they do with trying to deal with that struggle. Obviously, but just to make sure people understand that we're all on the same basis here.
He would frequently return for visits, each time paying $300 for a bus ticket. With every visit, he would meet someone.
You got a
new,
debit card? Congrats!
Themselves. Jen would
buy some
ask for
stuff.
money to buy food, and the writer would relent, feeling a sense of obligation. She would also attempt to help the writer and others grow more attached to whatever Final Fantasy character she had assigned to them. This was achieved through various means, including pantomimed magical battles and a past life regression involving laying on the floor and listening to music.
No, hold on. I want to read that. I want to read that.
More attached to whatever Final Fantasy character she had assigned to them. This was achieved through various means, including...
The next day, Jen decided to show me magic battles. These are basically like LARP fights. She would swing around a stick or sword to music and feign injury when Hojo threw stuff at her after making some goofy hand movements. Hojo would do the same when Jen would thrust her staff forward or something. They tried to get me to do it, but I can't act. I can't pretend I'm doing magic because I'm not that out of it. Eventually, Jen dragged me onto my feet. It was something like a karaoke. I kept laughing at both myself and the fact that I could do some sort of limp wrist movement, and Jen would throw herself on the floor panting. Afterwards, they kept telling me, "See, Zach, you can use magic," and I kept laughing. I knew what I was doing. I was not that out of it, but I was ready to keep humoring them because it wasn't hurting anyone.
Oh,
it's gonna get weirder.
And a past life regression
can guarantee.
Involving laying on the floor and listening to music from the game. In one instance, on a trip to the college, she and Hojo locked the writer in a soundproof room past the point of panic to help him, quote, remember being Zack. Another
Oh,
time,
fuck.
when meeting someone soul-bonded to the character Eris, Jen attempted to coax them into sleeping together. To this end, she announced that she was going to lace their food with aphrodisiacs, but whether she actually did so or not, her demands were not realized. As strange as these instances were, however, they were not enough to dissuade the writer when Jen and Hojo proposed that he move in with them.
Well, naivety is generally, like, people who are naive are the people who get taken advantage of. Like, that does tend to be, like,
The
a
writer
through
moved
line.
into the State College apartment in the summer of 2003 with plans to only stay for the season. Within 3 days, he found a part-time job at a supermarket to help pay for food and rent, and he quit drinking as well. But his experience quickly degraded. Quote, "I can't even say what came first, chicken or egg, but let's just say that after 1 week, I was getting sick of it. I was the workhorse. I guess because I was Zack, I was therefore the manly man, as opposed to Jen the Cetra Queen or Hojo the frail scientist. Jen quit her babysitting job and refused to look for another one. I was the one who had to carry groceries to and from the house, the one who made the money to feed everyone, the one who had to fix or move furniture when it needed to be fixed or moved. My computer could rarely get online because Jen was on almost 24/7. The rest of the time,
Oh my god, that was a thing back in the day too. If you're too young to remember this, dial-up internet meant that there could only be like a certain number of people on the computer. It wasn't like it wasn't the same bandwidth issue that it is now where like so many people are on it. Like typically you would have like 1 or 2 computers and only one of them could really be on the internet at any given time. You'd have to have like a whole separate setup for the second computer.
That read something along the lines of, "Jen is abusing me, help me God, I'm tired and I want out of here." Unquote.
Jesus.
Jen's pattern of surveillance.
Oh shit! I'm gonna calorie on my coins. Hold on, I need to consume these 100 bits. Thank you for the 100 bits. They were delicious.
Worsened quickly.
And I feel
He
like
would
I have
always
been
be listening
sustained.
in on calls, reading his online interactions, and demanding to know wherever he was going to keep track of him. She would frequently wake him up in the middle of the night for sundry magical errands, depriving him of sleep. She demanded he spend his meager paycheck on $10 steaks for dinner, which made him sick, and when those would only last one night, she and Hojo had him ask for unsold food at the supermarket.
Oh, that's
Nobody in
tough.
the apartment would take out the garbage or clean besides the writer, who only washed the dishes, and so the stink festered in the apartment.
Sometime around here, Jen wanted to move out of the apartment. The place was a pigsty. The reason was that Jen had never cleaned. All of the cleaning was done by guests who they had coming and going at intervals. I did the dishes frequently, but the trash was almost never taken out. It got to the point where the apartment smelled like rotting Jen refused to believe it was the trash and it needed to go out. She kept claiming some former owner must have done something, but it was a horrible mess. Their only solution as they saw it was to move out, so they all got a different apartment from the landlady, a 1-room gig. I did not like this at all. At least in the current apartment, I could stay in the living room while they had sex in the bedroom or beat each other in the bedroom. Now I couldn't have anywhere to escape to.
Pennsylvania summer.
Good
Jen only wore a
lord.
single dress and refused
That's
to bathe,
tough.
opting instead to use scented oil. The writer described the smell in the apartment as rotting flesh and a miasma of filth with sparkles, sunshine,
Thank you so much for the sub, Connor.
artificial sugar scent sprayed over it. What's more,
Connor really said, I now have the
Jen and
power.
Hojo would beat each other loudly and with increasing frequency behind their bedroom door as the summer continued, each time followed by noisy sex. This pattern of starvation, sleep deprivation, surveillance, and social isolation eroded the writer's will, and he began supporting them blindly.
That's how
For
you do it.
example, while the writer was staying there,
Seriously,
Eris
that's-
grew tired
that's-
of Jen
that's
and
how it
the two had a
happens.
falling out. The writer described the aftermath.
That's actually a thing that cults do too. Cults will so there's love bombing, right? Which is where you basically force someone you force your how much you love them down their throat, and that gets them to comply with your wishes. And then there's this, which is just you deprive them of sleep and nutrition, and you force them to accept the situation as being normal because they're so out of it that they can't really make those decisions for yourself. And a lot of people think that they wouldn't fall for that. A lot of people think that they're better than someone who would fall for something like this. I do it too. I have the same thoughts. But it's also important to remember, if you have ever known someone who has been either deprived of food or deprived of sleep, it really does not take long for them to start just you know what I mean? Just fizzing out. When I was younger, I did not get a lot of sleep. Especially probably my junior year of high school. I don't remember much of my junior year of high school. I legitimately could not recall much of that year of my life into my senior year because I was so sleep deprived. I was getting 2 hours of sleep a night. Like, and that was like my usual. A good night was 4 hours. I was getting 2 hours of sleep a night for about a year and a half, and I was like fucked up. Like, I had no idea. And so now it's like a memory gap for me. Like, I don't have a good grasp on what that time of my life was like. So like it does happen, and it's like it's a very scary situation.
One evening when Hojo and I were at the used bookstore stealing books, yes, that poor, and said she wanted some of her things back that she had left at the apartment. Jen exploded. She called Hojo's cell phone in tears, screaming she was going to kill herself. I believed her.
Jeez.
Hojo called Sid and demanded he go over. Hojo called Eris and screamed at her. I told her off too. We rented a taxi with money we didn't have and raced home. Jen, who had been screaming.
I guess content warning. This is gonna start talk. I think they're gonna talk about self-harm. So just so you know, content warning.
Screaming she had slit her wrists, was sitting in the middle of the floor. Sid was draping damp cloths on her wrists. I woke up for a second and knew this was bullshit. I had a problem with self-injury, so I knew very well the sight of a deep cut and the sight of a light cut. I know well knife wounds. Jen had scratched herself, horizontally on the wrists. Maybe it had been with a safety pin or a butter knife. It was not any kind
Stream of the Year award, thanks.
At the most, it would sting. But I was still mad at Eris because I was supposed to be. I wrote her nasty emails. I joined them in bashing her. I ignored her when she came to pick up her stuff, even though she obviously wanted to still be friends with me. I regret that now because we never reconciled then. Maybe if I had got a clue and tried to get out with her, things would have turned out different. Unquote. Soon
That's
he
tough.
was left with no money to leave and no confidence to ask for help. Even when he attempted to talk to his father at a payphone, Jen would go hunting for him. Then, when the filth in the apartment grew unbearable...
Again, super common, like, cult tactic to cut off people's loved ones. If you can't contact the outside world and you're stuck in that echo chamber, again, it's another sign of, like, there's something seriously wrong in that situation.
And Hojo asked their landlord if they could move to a smaller single-room apartment, further increasing their proximity.
This is fascinating. How have I never heard about this?
Soon after the move, the supermarket cut the writer's job to 1 hour a week. But even so, Hojo took all of them out to buy new things for the apartment, implying that she had been hiding money away in order to make the writer pay for things. Here, as they did many other times, they fought publicly. However,
I love how often he uses this fucking JPEG of Hojo just staring so angrily at the screen.
There was one person from the circle of friends in town who had consistently helped to stabilize the writer's mental state, a person who went by Sid, also a name from Final Fantasy, though the author describes him as having, quote, 1 foot in reality. He wrote, Sid occasionally would come over. When he did, I was glad because it was someone else. But he was and still does have his dickish moments. Jen would make these the be-all end-all, and Renee would back her up. I began to think he was like that all the time and didn't want to hang out with him when he was gone. Once he came back, they had to restart the process of brainwashing me all over again. Unquote.
Woof.
It was after one of these visits that the writer finally gathered the will to leave. Inspired after someone had stolen his shoes, he left everything behind in the apartment and walked the streets barefoot.
Hold on, I don't think... Yeah, he's not going to quote it. The next morning, someone had stolen my shoes. You may think that's a silly reason to snap, but that's what did it. This god-awful town with these god-awful people who were bleeding me dry saw fit that my money was not enough. They had to take my shoes, too. I had it. I had just had it. I pulled a sheet of paper that had Hojo's computer campus login and name. I stole some keys and threw some edible trash to my poor rat who was starving. I threw a change of clothes, a pocket knife, and all the money I had left, $5, into a bag along with my sketchbook and pencil, and I walked shoeless.
Living with Jen and Hojo.
Woof.
After being homeless for a few days, Sid helped him gather his things and return to his mother's
Let's go, Sid! You know what? Just like in the fucking Final Fantasy games, Sid's got your back. Let's go. That poor rat, seriously.
The writer spoke of a few others involved with Jen.
Bark, bark, woof,
One account
indeed.
was about someone he referred to as Captain McCool, a sensitive person with whom they sought to fill the vacant spot that the writer had left. When they asked him to move in with them, he was too nervous to turn them down directly, and so he claimed that he had been assaulted to avoid it. When they discovered his lie, they, quote,
no, it doesn't sound like it.
Chair and forced him to watch while they raped each other.
Woof!
Another person whom he referred
to.
Sorry,
I wish I could have caught that in time.
Fuck. Lifestyle. At the time he was writing the live journal.
I'm just gonna give a content warning for this video at this point. Like if you are uncomfortable with, I guess, self-harm, cult shit, and I guess sexual assault, be careful listening to this.
And was forced to remain
Christ, I wasn't expecting that.
The writer expected some people in the Final Fantasy community to see this, but he couldn't expect the sort of attention it would receive.
This is a dark one. This is a toughie.
Word spread quickly about the LiveJournal post, and many fans of Final Fantasy, as well as Soulbonders, commented that they had heard some details about Jen
Lost in combat,
but hadn't known the extent of their behavior. Others who already knew her found these claims unsurprising. Beyond the community, however, this story gained interest on forums, including 4chan, who treated it with disgust and fascination. It was soon adopted into general knowledge as a way to reference poor living conditions and soulbonders, a subsection of a group known as Otherkin. It was here that the infamous story earned its generally recognized name and misnomer, the Final Fantasy VII House, or often just the Final Fantasy House. Though the rest of the internet would sometimes question its veracity, the writer's account seemed generally accepted within the Final Fantasy community. He began to receive testimony from other people affected by the group, many of them people he had met during his time at the apartment. To share their correspondences, he created a website where he cataloged the accounts of those who approached him alongside his own.
Wow.
Due to the limited archival information available, it's difficult to say the rate at which he updated the site with new accounts, but it appears he was receiving them as late as 2006, with each person represented by a pseudonym. Some of these accounts were from people mentioned in the original LiveJournal post, and they helped elucidate the practices of the group and enunciate Jen's and Hojo's behaviors. These accounts suggest an air of amateurishness yet charisma to everything Jen did. For example, one account from someone going by Zarla wrote, quote, "There were also tarot card readings and such while we were there. Jen had the same tarot deck I had as a kid, the Tarot of the Cat People, and she told my fortune using the exact same method outlined in the little booklet that came with the cards. I can't remember anything really specific about the readings, except there was always mention of something coming after me or something, thus the coughing. If I remember right, later we were playing with a Ouija board and that something or someone was again trying to contact us."
I think there's a mention of sexual assault a bit later on, but it doesn't go into too much detail. We pretty much hit the most not safe for work bits leading into the why.
These accounts
Okay.
would also unanimously support
Thank you for the
the
heads up.
assertions about Jen from the original writer. One of the oddest
Ooh.
entries, however, was an
Blood and plasma sales always make me sad. That you know you're in a tough situation when you're doing that.
From the Wayback Machine. It is posted without consent of the original author, and I want to make that damn clear. She has nothing to do with it being here, so don't involve her. It is being backed up here due to the fact that it contains some current information that I felt should be edited out, like names or references to other people uninvolved. As far as I know, the original author is now happily farming turkeys in Idaho. Don't hassle her.
Good for
This
them.
was written in 2003. The article itself is apparently written by another active member of the soul bonding community, though clearly no longer associated with Jen, under the pseudonym Candy Wrapper. The introduction to the letter reads, "Genova, when I became your apprentice, you told me to shut up and not argue with you. Apparently, a sorceress is supposed to be a creature who blindly accepts the opinions of the authorities, even when she firmly believes that they are wrong. From this, I learned that when Jen says
There's
something
pizza
I
in
disagree
this,
with,
Ma.
I need to nod and make
Pizza?
agreeing sounds anyway. Otherwise, we would have to fight every 2 minutes, and quite frankly, saying what I thought wasn't worth the hassle. I am not, however, your apprentice anymore, and I am free to say what I think. And I will, because it's a relief to say it, even if you aren't reading this.
They eat some
I do not
pizza?
actually give a
Goddamn.
crap whether
Those
you
sick
read it or
fucks.
not. It will hurt your feelings, and you will care
Those
that
sick fucks, how could they?
it happened, and I don't.
That's
You
less
have
for
been
me.
Warned. The letter is structured as a list, and the first item reveals the name of Jen. You do not look like any Final Fantasy characters. You look like Jennifer Cornett. End of story. She shared some of her thoughts on Hojo and her relationship with Jen. If Renee does not go to class and do her homework, it will be difficult for her to pass those classes. Then she is no closer to graduating. Until she graduates, it will be hard for her to get a job that makes more money than she gets now. This is called capitalism, and it's a bitch. No one likes it, but no one has come up with anything that works any better. Renee always has to call off work or skip class to give you attention. She does this because she loves you. Love makes people do irrational and reckless things. This is one of them.
Yep.
That does not make it a good idea.
Love
You are wrecking
bombing!
Renee's life. It is wrong to do so, even if you have her permission. A few other choice lines read, "You have no money because you keep spending it on things you want. Anything you want is not automatically a magical item. There may be potential magic in everything, but then there's magic in things you don't bother to look at, things you can have for free. If something is a magical item, that doesn't mean you must own it. It would be nice if you could, but you can't always do so. I had money because I rarely bought anything for myself. Whenever I got some money, I would save it. I am not a money generator, and neither are my parents. If you want to have money, you need to not spend it. I now do not have money because I spent it on you.
Woof.
All gone. You still wanted more, but I didn't have any more to give you. I have been using crystals since I was 10 years old. You are wrong when you start with that "you won't use them properly" shit, because I have been using crystals since elementary school. You taught me no magic. The only thing I actually learned from you was to beware of people like you. But among these accounts, there was one that stood out from the others, and if it's to be believed, it showed just how far the manipulation of Jen's entourage could go.
Oh boy, we getting into the meat and the potatoes. Yeah, super pissed,
In
seriously.
November of 2005, the LiveJournal writer entered email correspondence with a woman who went by Mela. Mela had apparently known and bonded with Jen in a Utah boarding school and rediscovered her online through an open letter. Though the quote in the email isn't quite the same, it's highly likely that the letter Mela discovered was the list written by Candy Wrapper. Hoping to reconnect, Mela asked the author of the letter for Jen's information, and sometime after, she visited Jen's residence for 2 weeks. Here, she claims Jen was able to convince her to spend $2,000 on various objects and food by asking only for small amounts at a time. Sometime afterward, likely in 2005, Mela made the decision to begin living with them. Quote, I moved in with $17,000 in my bank account, and soon Jen had drained all of that on necessities, all
Holy
for the house.
shit, $17,000 is a lot of money.
Many of which went into Jen's room and never came out. Soon, I received a check from the investment company for $80,000, and Jen's spending began again in earnest. I tried to get her to stop spending money on frivolous things, but every time I said no or told her she could spend her own money buying things for herself, she threw a fit. All this time, she was telling me how important I was to her special plan, how the world needed us to stick together so we could conquer evil, etc. I wanted desperately to feel special. I was scared and alone, and I believed her. She knew a few magic tricks, was very good at reading people, and could give relatively accurate tarot readings. I fell for her lies, hook, line, and sinker.
Early Chris Chan deep. Yeah, seriously. That's what it feels like.
Hojo's relationship with Jen had deteriorated, and she had been supplanted by a new person named Angel, whom Mela claimed was remarkably violent. Jen was now sleeping exclusively with Angel, though sometimes Hojo would sleep with Angel as well. Hojo was forced to stay extremely silent during the day or risk being berated by Jen. This information strongly suggests that Hojo was the one who was selling blood to fund Jen. Their hygiene was also still abysmal. Quote, oh, how Jen smelled. Angel was much worse, though. I don't think that girl ever bathed. They just kept adding perfume, and Jen's purple skirt/dress stinked to high heaven. That was until I made her other clothes to wear. Jen, during this time, was apparently made aware of the LiveJournal writer's website as well.
97 to 2012? Jesus
Here's
Christ!
that they moved somewhere new, and it was here that she claimed she was beaten on multiple occasions. Once, during a dispute, one of them grabbed Jen's hair and
that's a
started
lot of
slamming her head
years!
into the floor, while Jen and Angel beat her with their fists, then
Oh my
sat on her
God!
and attempted to choke her. Finally, she passed out from the head trauma.
Oh my
Jen
God!
would later convince her that she had attacked Jen first, then blacked out. Eventually, Mela would tolerate no more, and she kicked them out. Much like their apartment, the house was left a mess, which Mela documented with photographs. They also had stolen numerous objects upon their departure, including board games, fabric, and a set of corsets, though her demand for back payments of rent, quote, in excess of $10K, is suspiciously inexact. While this account is consistent with other reports of the group's behavior, there was no method by which anyone could verify the veracity of any of them.
I have no idea, Tarmac. I hope so.
Alongside this, the author would
It probably ends with this Jen person losing all of their power or fucking going to jail.
Finally reveal the faces of Jen and
I'd
Hojo.
hope so anyway.
In the frequently asked questions section, he wrote, is this photo Vincent/Jen/Hojo? 90% of the time, no. This was Jen in 1999. She got fatter and dirtier. This was Renee in 2000. She looks the same. In
What does that mean?
response to this attention, Jen and Hojo began to frantically delete most traces of themselves online, and even with their names publicly available,
Jen
nobody
looks
could
like
find
her
them.
name is
After
Jen,
this,
by the
attention on
way.
these
Just
stories
looks like
began
a
to wane.
Jen.
But only a few years
I think it's
after
the brunette
accounts were
hair and
posted,
glasses.
The Final Fantasy house would return in a way that nobody expected and, at first, seemed entirely unrelated.
Big same. Big same.
On July 15th, 2008, a LiveJournal user by the name of Dragon Tiger Claw wrote a post entitled Insane Housemate Part 1 and published it on Housemate Horror, an open, moderated page where people could share their stories of bad roommates. The opening reads, quote, I used to live in an awesome situation in SoCal until the housemate from hell moved in. Fortunately, she has left, but the bitterness remains on my tongue. It is a saga that can only be told in pieces. Please bear with me. In the cut, you will find part 1 of the saga.
Dragon Tiger Claw is a hell of a
who was
name.
a video game character. Unquote. Soon, the author would name himself as Pete. The tale was structured in irregularly sized sections, with many of them ending on cliffhangers. He explained that he was living with 5 other people in a 4-story house. He claimed that the rent was a preposterously low $500 a month, and that the landlord, Matt, kept it that way because his chief concern was that he wanted company in the house he had inherited.
It's a
However,
sick
his
ass
standards for
name.
roommates were high. They all had to have stable income and employment and be at least 25 years old. The woman who was chosen after their screening process was kept anonymous by Dragon Tiger Claw and was given the placeholder name Sarah, who moved in without much trouble. She claimed to be a 27-year-old computer programmer who already had a job in the area, but when she went back to work after the move, she returned saying she was laid off. When others offered to help her find new work, she consistently delayed accepting it, which made them suspicious. But much more striking was her connection to a particular game. Quote, in the 3 weeks that followed, Sarah was still unemployed. She spent all her time playing video games in the family room. She would play the same game over and over, some crappy-looking RPG from the 90s.
crappy looking RPG from the 90s. Final Fantasy VII is a goddamn treasure. How fucking dare they? I know it was a bad situation, but don't trash on Final Fantasy because she's insane.
It had an unpronounceable name, but Sarah said she was bonded to the game. She also told us that she changed her name to be that of one of the game characters. Upon further discussion, she explained that she believed she was the human incarnation of this character and that they shared a soul. Unquote. Pete refused to reveal what character she was claiming to be, however, since it would be identifying information. This game would, in the second update, be revealed to be the Japanese RPG Suikoden, released
I was wrong. I apologize.
in 1995. Soon afterwards, a
However, that still looks sick as fuck.
friend of hers came to visit the house. She also believed herself bonded to a Suikoden character, specifically Sasarai, but since Pete could neither spell nor pronounce it, he simply called her something. After spending a week together playing video games, they picketed a barbecue that the rest of the housemates were having. Though they had been given vegetarian options to join, they refused on moral grounds, denouncing them for eating meat. After they were aggressively told off, they were asked for a house
good, they're
meeting that took place
vegetarians.
In March to discuss
Fantastic.
whether or not Sarah would
Never
be allowed
have
to stay. Sarah
ever
attempted
had
to explain herself.
struggles with that.
Sarah lifted her head and started to talk. She started with, "I am sorry, but you have to understand where I am coming from." She also said, "Lots of people can't understand me because I have such a high intellect. It is beyond
Oh
their
God!
grasp.
Oh, she's pulling the Ben Shapiro facts and
Excuse
logic.
us for being sane, bitch." Unquote. They eventually learned that she had used friends' help to get past the screening process. She had never had a job in California, was from the East Coast, and used a friend's address to get a California driver's license while another posed as her boss. Matt allowed her to stay until May 1st, since she had already paid for April. Sarah, however, wasn't willing to leave so easily.
She's a Rick and Morty Redditor. Oh my God, you're right. I bet she loves
By
that
this
show.
point, numerous readers had become enraptured, begging for updates to what they had come to call the Sarah saga.
So
and
is
many
Sarah
returned
not
daily in
Jen?
hopes that a new part would be posted by Pete. In response to the pressure from Matt and the rest of the house, Sarah isolated herself in her room, with Sasarai acting as a go-between. She would only leave it in Sasarai's company. However, this didn't last long, as Matt was able to pull a favor from a psychologist friend to get her treatment for free, and he managed to convince Sarah to attend. Soon, she was on medication, and was interacting with the others on a more normal basis.
Oh, thank you
It
so
was during
much.
this time that they discovered Sarah's true form of income. Quote, she said, "Plain as can be, I have people offer me donations on my blog so I can spread the news of my religion." Her religion being that she is actually a male video game character from a game that came out in the 90s. What? So there are some morons out there who are giving money to Sarah so she can pretend to be a video game character and teach others how to do the same? Something said, "We give her things because she has helped us find our true selves." "So you don't work either?" Tim asked. I could tell he was ready to explode. "No, I get government benefits in the UK." "Why?" "Because I don't like to work." Soon after this, Sarah's boyfriend convinced her to abandon her medication, and the results were
I mean, it's a fair enough reason for me. God damn. You love that show, but people shit on it because the fan base sucks. I just don't think Rick and Morty's that funny. I think it was funny for like the first 3 seasons. Now I hear anything Rick and Morty and I just hear Dan Harmon doing a silly voice.
violent. After
I think the story's fine. I think it's even good, but like I just don't find it funny
She
anymore.
would continue to take her pills irregularly, but by this point, interaction between her and the rest
Religion
of the house
helped me do
fell
it,
to
I
a
swear.
minimum. By the time May 1st came, there
Too
was
much
no sign of
incest
her
for you
moving out.
personally?
When Matt attempted
That's
to evict
fair.
her, Sarah called the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, claiming
I don't think it's a
discrimination
bad
against
show
her
though.
religion and
Not
her
by any
disabilities.
degree.
While the
It's
state
just not
didn't
for
follow
me.
through on these threats, they did discover that Matt had never filed the correct paperwork to house tenants, and Matt couldn't evict her until the proper paperwork was filed.
Oh my God, she's so fucking devious, dude. She's pulling crimes up in this bitch.
Would happen
Pulling
that summer. In
crimes,
July, Sarah
dude!
gathered 12 members of her soul bonding group at the house to perform a ritual, threatening Matt that she would file a discrimination suit against him if he wouldn't let them stay. Though Matt acquiesced, he only allowed them to stay until 10 o'clock that night. One roommate demanded that the soul bonders be ejected, but Matt wanted to gawk at their ritual, and so they stood in the kitchen and ate pizza while watching them.
Rick and
He describes
Murray.
the ritual. Quote, Sarah came downstairs, dressed in a white dress. She kept glancing at us. Something stood between her and us so she couldn't see us, I guess, and she began talking. She talked about how this was Betty's awakening and how Betty was now going to finally realize her potential by harnessing the soul of a video game character. I couldn't stand it. I started cracking up. The rest of the housemates started cracking up. This was better than any kind of TV
He's skipping over where she says, Sarah started screaming at all of us, calling us racists. Now, I don't know how being a soul bonder is a race, but okay. Then we were called Nazis. Oh, that's lovely. I guess if you're saying it and don't believe you're in a video game, character / dragon / wart on someone's ass, you're a Nazi. First of all, whoever's writing this is pissed. Pissed the fuck off. They are so mad. Second of all, Sarah Sarah has to be Jen, right? Like they sound exactly the same.
You can imagine. See if you can picture all of these nutjobs kneeling around the altar as the video game played its music in the background.
That is
Sarah
very
stood
goofy.
over them,
That's
preaching this
goofy. That's some
religion, and
goofy
the right
shit.
Bishop something would occasionally interject something deep from her position. Sarah was really getting upset, so more of her friends made the human wall. We could still hear all the stupid, even after they turned up the volume on that video game. At this point, Matt threatened to call the police since it was nearly 10 o'clock, but when one of the members of Sarah's group threw a punch, the threat was carried out, and the group was forced from the premises.
Goddamn. Dude, they should be mad? Yeah, no, absolutely. Season 3 to present has a lot of reoccurring plot point that I don't like. Is it the self-cessed one? Isn't Beth trying to like get with herself from a different universe? That's all I know about it. I saw a clip on TikTok.
After this point, other members of the house would share some of their experiences.
Fucking
but as they
Onceler
did,
shit going
readers
on
grew
in the
more
Rick and Morty
suspicious.
fandom.
Before this, many people had been doubting the veracity of the claims made by Pete, but when the other housemates began to write in a similar fashion to him, it made them even more dubious.
An incest baby that takes over the... Oh yeah, I did hear about that. What? That can't be true. I hope that's not true. A gag can't be true. What?
Before being deleted, but they were apparently severe enough for the moderator of housemate Cole to write a post regarding them. Also in this post was a surprising and unexpected piece of information. Quote, Tim, Pete, and Carrie, aka the people posting from the account Dragon Tiger Claw about
That's
the Sarah
insane.
saga, may be as they say they are, different housemates of Sarah, or they may be the one person doing a little creative writing experiment. Basically, I don't give a crap. The posts have been amusing and entertaining, and anyone who doesn't think so is not being forced to read them, so please do not complain. Farther down, the mod continues. It has been brought to my attention that a post was made by someone who was claiming to know Sarah, and that the posts made by DTC were false and harassing blah blah wah blah. This same person, Jay Eckhart, sent me an email before they made that post, requesting IP address information on the poster of the Sarah stories in order to catch the culprit making these false and harassing posts. I declined, as I do not think giving out personal/identifying information such as IP addresses on members
I don't think those are spoilers. I think those are warnings.
Also, I have no proof that this person is really representing Sarah or that the posts made about her are false. I have no proof that they are true either, but until I get proof either way, I think the best thing is to not take any drastic actions. They requested I not tell DTC about them contacting me, and I intended not to, simply because it was the most neutral action to take, but then they made that post and made their intentions public. So I feel fine with telling you all, including DTC, about the email now. But meanwhile, elsewhere on the internet, other people were having their own discussion about the Sarah saga, and they would quickly discover much more than they first expected.
This is insane. This is absolutely insane. This is fascinating.
11
parts? What the fuck?
Something awful forum.
Jabberwock, no!
Posted a thread entitled "If You Thought Furries Were Bad," which linked to the 11 parts of the Sarah saga
you thought
that had been
furries were
posted
bad.
so far. The responses seemed mostly to reflect amusement, though quite a number of forum members echoed the doubt displayed in the comments of the posts themselves. One user, however, who went by Jägerhunde, had a different response. Quote, I haven't read through the journals, I only started the first, but I swear this could be about—
I am the Mozart of my own Wang. Fucking poetry.
a girl I knew and even once dated in that really vague, sad high school nerd way. She claimed that she was soul bonded to the Eris character from Final Fantasy VII, that her girlfriend was soul bonded to Sephiroth, and she swore at one point with perfect seriousness that she was carrying Sephiroth's spirit child. Apparently, she'd conducted an elaborate fantasy life with these characters in her head and had written pages upon pages of god-awful fanfiction about it. So far as I know, she grew out of it eventually, but when I say eventually, I mean like late 20s. Even when I knew her at 16, this kind of behavior from her made me want to stay far the fuck away. Oh yeah, the girl in question also changed her name to some bullshit nerd fantasy name she made up and absolutely refused to ever be addressed by her birth name. After reading
putting
through
it
the rest
back
of the
when I
entries,
have to.
Jägerhunde returned the next day with a
funny.
new post that took the other readers aback. Pretty sure I've got this all sewn up, goons. Allow me to introduce you to Catherine Rain. By pure chance, Jägerhunde had been in a small writing club in high school
It kind of a sick cosplay though. That half cape looks sick as hell.
Catherine, and still knew her Flickr account, her DeviantArt account, and her LiveJournal account.
I'm just saying,
They also
it looks
discovered
cool.
a Flickr account of someone cosplaying as Sasarai, who had numerous
That's
pictures of both herself and Catherine. One of these images credited
also
her as
cool,
Catherine
I guess.
Silverberg. Silverberg being the surname of a family of characters. From
Less cool than the
Sweden,
half
known
cape.
for
I like
their
the half
tactical
cape
prowess
more.
in war. Other photographs had Catherine in a white dress, something that Sarah had worn in the Sarah saga. But the most telling piece of evidence
shit.
Jägerhunde discovered was legal paperwork of her name change. By searching for her name in the county archives, he was able to discover her court schedule for when she legally changed her name. Though the accounts of Pete and his housemates were still doubted, the identity
If we
of
ignore
Sarah
the
seemed
implications,
almost
exactly.
certain. They also were able to track down the website that this soul bonding community was using to proselytize curious internet users. Another person rediscovered the pamphlets that they would hand out at conventions.
Have you heard the good news about the true runes? What?
Part of it reads, "The runes are devoted to preserving the natural order of life. While it can't be denied that their bearers have often experienced great hardship as a result of bearing the runes, we know
Where are
that
you
this
getting
is
the
due to
runes?
inexperienced bearers
Where are you gonna
with
get
no
runes
magical
from,
training,
my guy?
suddenly and unexpectedly receiving the runes' gifts. With no knowledge of how to live in harmony with these powerful entities, they can't control the vast forces raging in turmoil inside themselves. But if people were taught to listen to and understand the runes, we could have the healthy, positive relationships with them that we were always meant to have." The end of the pamphlet encourages readers to contact Bishop Sasserai. After looking through the information on the Final Fantasy house, Jägerhunde made another assertion. That
There we go.
Catherine had
I always
also
wanted to
been
zoom in a
deeply
bit.
involved with Jen and Hojo. He believed that she was in fact both Candy Wrapper, the person who had written the list on the website, as well as Eris, the apprentice that Jen had lost. Catherine had also been attending the University of Delaware during the events of the Final Fantasy
RuneScape?
house, only a 2-hour drive from State College. It appeared that after these two
I'm gonna
distanced
start a
themselves from one
religion
another, Catherine
around being my RuneScape character, and I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna start mining until I hit 99.
and her own soul bonding.
I don't know what it means to hit 99 in real life, but I'm gonna fucking do it.
Over the years, though the evidence linking the two was circumstantial, the specificity of it left little doubt, and this revived interest in the Final Fantasy house enough that new people were again.
Did multiverses die? Yeah, actually, kind of. They did a hitbox update or whatever that people really liked, but outside of that, like, I think there was a lot of discussion about how like the gameplay wasn't as deep as Smash is, so people just kind of like didn't stick with the game. But I'm sure that it'll have like a mini revival at some point here when they update it.
Discovering it.
I don't think it's fully dead. Multiverse is the Warner Brothers
August
version
22nd,
of
just 2 days after
Smash Bros.
Jägerhunde had posted about Catherine, he made another post saying, quote, "Took a day off, everyone. I don't really have anything more to add, except to mention to everyone that I've become aware that our protagonist is now aware of this thread. Say hi, everyone." Gleefully, the rest of the forum members began to post messages to Catherine, mocking and teasing her, claiming to be soul-bonded to any number of characters or objects. That same day, however, an update was posted to the Final Fantasy House website. Quote, "I updated some stuff to make it slightly more legible. Evidently, Housemate Horror's Sarah is not Rain Crystal. This comes to me via the writer of the Sarah saga. If you think he's lying or that I'm lying, that is your own business, but that is what he told me. Rain Crystal's behavior, soul bond nuttiness, getting money for it, etc., is similar enough to Sarah that she is harassing the writer to stop posting."
Where the fuck did Jen go? This video is almost done, and everything's about Sarah now? Is Sarah Jen? Is Jen Sarah? Where's Jen?
As such, I still think she's worth warning people about. I am
The
sorry,
fuck
but
happened
based
to
on
Jen?
my experiences and the experiences of others, soul bonders are dangerous freakos. Unquote. The next day, Jägerhunde had a strongly worded reply.
Jen may
Quote,
be dead?
"This is
Oh,
actually a
shit.
goddamn lie. Greta is a litigious loving nut, and it sounds to me like Housemate Horror Dude is doing damage control. I don't blame the Final Fantasy VII house author, since he's probably taking it simply on faith that our Housemate Horror author is telling the truth. But he's not, and anyone who's read this far through the thread should see through this pathetic obfuscation pretty easily." Unquote. In
Damn.
response to one person asking for clarification, Jägerhunde replied, "It would be irresponsible for me to say that Greta and her friends have their collective panties in a wad about the housemate horror thing and have been pressuring the author to recant, so I won't. I'd like to add that it's possible that the housemate horror author is a very elaborate troll, but even if he is, this is clearly someone who knows Greta, if it's her, of course, and while I'm willing to entertain the idea that some of the particulars might be fabricated, the fact that anybody
They are different people. They live together, and Jen started everything. We just have a lot of records of Catherine spreading it after leaving. Oh, that makes sense.
Greta has possibly
I see. Jen is the Palpatine to Sarah's Darth Vader. That makes sense. That makes sense.
defensive about a series of stories which even use false names says much about that person. Unquote. Finally, on August 24th, in mid-afternoon,
The rule
all
of
parts
two.
of the story were removed from the Housemate Horror blog. However, working from Google Cache, the members of the forum were able to piece together all of the parts that had been written by Dragon Tiger Claw and archive it on the forum, though it also had been saved on the Wayback Machine. That same day, the original Final Fantasy House author posted an update to his website.
Shit.
Quote, "Well, what do you know? When something awful found Catherine Rain, things really heated up. The original writer of the Sarah saga got regular harassment until he took the story down. Considering the mind-numbing level of consistent details between Catherine's data and the data on Sarah, I'm going to agree with the goons. The OP
The
was just
goons!
doing damage control. It's obviously her. The current theory is, in one last-ditch effort to avoid more court battles with her, he deleted all the posts. Well, Greta, you stepped in it. You took away my train wreck that I was reading to defend your crazy cult. If he was writing fiction or not, you took away the fun. Thanks to something awful, we'll have lots of nice photos and links all here about you in just a little while."
Goddamn.
This last update remains on the website to this day, and a link to the Sarah Saga thread on Something Awful is provided farther down the page. Now, the Final Fantasy House's website and the Sarah Saga remain as a warning about fandoms taken to their extreme, but they also serve as an example of how the online space collapses the distances between people, so that even old friends with no more existing ties can discover or stumble across one another, with wildly unpredictable effects.
That was wild. That was wild. That was insane. That was so crazy. A number of people have brought this up, so I think I should mention this when making the video. I am aware that Jen is still an active soul bonder who has moved on to the Hannibal fandom, but I decided to cut the video off at that point for two reasons. First, my intention is not to talk about Jen, but rather the Final Fantasy House. Second, the video was already pushing 40 minutes, and to cover Jen's further activities would have easily sent this past the 1 hour mark. This would have made the production cycle prohibitively long and the video much less accessible, neither of which I was willing to allow. This does not, however, rule out a video about Jen or Tattle Crime in the future. There's a goddamn Jen sequel out there, and honestly, gamers, I can't wait for the fucking sequel. I can't wait for the movie, but that's just me. Holy shit, that was fantastic. That was so good. That was a... Sorry, I love that. I love Breaking Bad edits so much. That was